Yes, I've been having this story at the back of my heart, and I think it is time for me to tell it to you. Yes, how we killed the member of our church who tried to expose our general overseer in those days. Now, a lot of people may be shocked that I'm saying this thing out and talking about my church. Yes, my church. How we killed the woman. She was a lady. You see, before I go into the story proper, I will give you the background of the woman. The woman was, a very good woman that was into, these women that use what they have to get to what they wanted. At some point in time, she graduated and became a boss lady, and she started recruiting others. So eventually, she came around, she heard the gospel, and she repented, or so she said she repented. So, and she actually stopped doing that business she was doing, and at some point in time, she built something like a kiosk within the church premises and started selling, gospel materials like Bibles and books and what have you. And I met her in the church anyway, so I heard her story. And several times, when you go to her to buy things, you wouldn't actually see that kind of grace, burdens that you would want to hear towards at least someone that is selling. She tells you a price and your price becomes a problem. So me, I was wondering, what is this? Although she was a Christian anyway, eventually that shop expanded and grew. And in the process, there were so many people who had their kiosk, in the church premises. You come into the premises, you would think it was a marketplace. And so somehow, and the government was coming into the church premises, the place was being messed up. So there was a directive for everybody, even those that were sleeping in the church. Because you see, I understand that we blacks were too religious, and our sense of religion tends to make us very lazy. So many people they will come for church service, they won't go home again. And sometimes they will be loitering around in the premises and they will be begging, So the whole place became more or less like a barrack. So directives was given for everybody, both those that were sleeping, those that have constructed something like a shanty in the church premises, and even in the process, the place was being messed up. Now, this story I'm telling it so that somebody would understand what I'm saying, because why I do the things, what I'm doing now, my experience. I'm not too old, but I've had some form of experience. I've seen where somebody did something and is lying at the person who he offended eventually became the victim. I've seen that. I've seen where somebody did nothing and somebody, just woke up from somewhere and started saying certain things, and this person was victimized. I've also heard the story of a young man who had a church, was married, and the ministry was growing, and a certain lady rose up and started talking nonsense about him and about the man, that they were having sexual relationship, but this was not true. Unfortunately, the wife of the young pastor left, his ministry closed, and he died of heartache. And eventually, sometimes in the life of the woman later, she got married. No, she couldn't get married. And Pastor Mensa Otabil said we are spiritists, and there is this spiritism in us that is almost incurable. So she started going from one place to place, and she visited all kinds of prayer houses and even British doctors. And she was reminded that there was a young man, she destroyed his life, and unfortunately the guy was no longer alive. So you need to be very patient to hear me out. So when people were told to vacate these premises, because the woman, when she came into the church, now, somebody who lived that kind of life, and in our midst, those testimonies, when I mean in our midst, I am not particularly talking about my church. In the Christian world, we love people like that, and we celebrate it. Just like when an armed robber comes out and say, I was an armed robber and I've killed such and such, I've killed so many people, and eventually Christ found me. That instinctively we celebrate that kind of testimony than the testimony of somebody who just even gave his life to Christ quietly may not even be allowed to give his testimony because he doesn't carry this kind of powerful stories behind it, as if one salvation is less than the other, to the other. So now, when she gave her testimony, now people were happy and she was taken in, and she walked herself up the echelon of leadership, and she was very, very close to leadership. And this also happens in many churches where people will come tell one story, and that person becomes the star of the moment. Sometimes we don't even verify their stories. We just swallow it, line, hook, and sinker, everything. And then these people become center of attraction. And sometimes it causes some form of envy amongst those who have been in the church, depending on the size of the church. So she walked herself to the leadership of the church, was very, very popular amongst the people. And the woman happened to be very charismatic. In fact, if you see her, on the surface, you will love her. She has this kind of grace. And at some point, she had her own, followership within the church run. You see, so she was very popular. And eventually, when that directive was given for everybody to move out, now what happened is that where the church headquarters is located, there are also some owners of lands there. So others moved. Others that could not, help themselves, maybe get another place within the premises that they could pay for, they moved. But she was able to negotiate with another landowner in that place and moved her kiosk from where it was to the place where she kept it. So everything was still going on well, and somehow the relationship was no longer how it used to be. We killed this woman eventually, but listen, me talking to you also, I almost got in trouble because of the way we killed her, because somebody spotted me in a public bus in those days, and it was almost going to be a situation that could have made the public to lynch me if the thing had gone higher than it was supposed than it was that day. So eventually, one thing, the relationship was no longer like that because of that directives, and somehow, now I'll put this in brackets because I wasn't there. This one I have told you are things that happened on the surface. So, but she had these women who were following her. So whenever there was a big meeting, say it's outside, she would always go to demand for money, for herself, and also to take care of herself in the crusades. This is in bracket. Now, at some point in time, those money being requested became a bit obnoxious to the church hierarchy. And so last time she went, it was denied her. So now that became the problem. Please, if you believe in grace, don't think I am on the side of anybody. Just want to tell you how we killed the woman. Honestly speaking, how she died and how the church got involved in her death, you will hear. So she started making trouble. He started, talking and shouting. And before you know it, within that same time, there was another woman that came out. She wasn't a member of the church. She said she had an encounter. She said Jesus told her that Jesus only told her about one church, particular church in Nigeria. That was the only true church. So she mentioned names of several pastors, and then my own pastor name was mentioned as part of those that received power from the occult, from shrines. Now, but eventually, when she sought an audience with that only pastor that she said was the only good one that Jesus approved, and that was not given to her, she turned against that same pastor and the church. So automatically, no church was good. And just like everybody now is saying that there's no man of God, no good pastor, no true church. That's what almost everybody is saying, but God forbid, I will never come to agree on that. Know that there are evil men of Satan that are parading themselves as men of God. I know there are men of God also who started well, but along the line, something happens to them. May God recover them. So I know that there are good and bad churches. I know there are original people of God, Christians, and I also know that there are fake Christians. And that's why I don't like to use the word good Christian or bad Christian. If you're a Christian, you're a Christian. If you're not a Christian, you're not a Christian. So back to my story. So when that woman's video was selling, to the extent that somebody, gave me the CD, not knowing actually that the woman was also talking about us. I tried playing that CD, the CD cracked. I couldn't, the DVD cracked. I couldn't watch it. One of the track songs that woman who had that revelation used to be our song. I did the lead, vocalist on that song is about salvation and the kingdom of God. Very nice song. So eventually, the story was everywhere. Everybody, the thing was on fire. Everybody was talking about this thing. And so that was a very good time for the woman who happened to be our sister to join in the fray and escalated the thing. So when you are even trying to talk about these things, now why I'm telling you this is that I've been able to build shock absorber that there's nothing you will say, and that is what the Lord has taught me from the scriptures. I can't defend any man. It is stupid to defend any man. You see, there is something I have found also amongst people. There was a video of former pastor of Redeemed Christian Church of God that I uploaded, where he was talking about the things that they experienced in the Redeemed Christian Church of God. And this Adelaja was, I think, the host there. I uploaded it. I didn't even say much there. I only picked some points that the man said. And I talked about something that I've also seen happening generally in churches, not only in Redeemed, even though that it was said that was not what happened. And I intentionally brought up that video because that was the reaction I was looking for. But unfortunately, so many people disappointed. Now, a particular comment there was a woman that said she thought I was a voice raised, by God, that she didn't know I was the same with others, and she laid curse on me. She laid a curse on me. Now, this, why I'm saying this is that she has been clapping for me while I was talking about other churches, and this we see often. She has been clapping for me when I was talking about other pastors. Now, but when a video that seemingly casts question mark on the activities of her own church or on the man of God she believes in, now I became an agent of the devil. Now that is why it is stupid to defend anybody. Don't defend anybody. Even when you know that what this person is saying is not true. You can only lend your voice that, no, this is not true. This is what I know about this case. Don't go beyond that line. I said that I have been in several, channels where they discuss about my own pastor and my church. And sincerely speaking, what they are saying, are not true because I am part of it. I'm a member in it. Am I saying that my church is perfect? We're not perfect. I'm just trying to tell you the story of how we killed somebody who tried to defame our church and defame our general overseer. So my church is not perfect after all. But just calm down and listen to me, so that why I deviated a bit is that maybe sounding particularly defensive or offensive to some, because there is always mixed reaction. And I tell you, this video also will generate some kind of furor. But I think that God has dealt with me to the point where I can absorb everything that you can throw at me now. All right. So this woman found a voice, more prominently. She was talking about the things she knew about the man of God, about the church. She was only talking about it and threatening how she would expose everything she knew. And so once the other woman came out, she found it as an opportunity, and so she started saying all kinds of things that when you are trying to, this was why I deviated. When you are trying to tell somebody that this woman that says she met God and God told her this is not true, they will ask you, okay, if her own is not true, what of the woman who is your member? Now you see why it was necessary, or people thought it was necessary for the church to kill the other woman that was our member, so that her voice will be silenced. So the whole thing went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Even that to the point that I think police came into the matter. The woman was maintaining her story, and at some point in time, now she came to the point where those things she was saying. Now, one of the things she said that proved that the church where I worship at that time was an occultic center was that when our pastor then was to wed, that the person who wedded him and his wife wore long beards, one. And secondly, that they mixed Coca-Cola and Fanta together. And that was a ritual. Now, but that process was actually the man trying to tell them, you see, Fanta has its color, Coke has its color. They are not the same. Though they are from the same company, just as we all are from the same God, made in the image of God, but we are characteristically different. And in fact, people born of the same woman are never the same. So, but in mixing the Fanta and Coca-Cola together, Coke lost its color, Fanta lost its color. They blended and became one. And that was what the man was trying to project in that exercise that he performed there. But this thing was going on, and the heat was rising. The heat was on everybody. And suddenly, so here now how we killed the woman. When it came to the point where she had to produce evidence for everything she had alleged, the woman, started talking about threats on her life. They want to kill her. They want to kill her. They want to kill her. And after some times, nobody heard her voice again. So the news was everywhere that we had killed the woman. That we had killed the woman. We have killed the woman. She was crying. She was crying, and nobody listened to her. Now that nobody was hearing her voice again, that means that the church has killed her. So I was in a bus. Immediately I came in. Somebody, I don't know, I can't remember how she felt. She found out about my membership of the church, either by television or by the clothes I was wearing. I can't be so certain now. She looked at me and said, and you people have succeeded finally to kill that woman. I looked at her, I said, which woman? You people have finally succeeded in killing that woman. You people have finally succeeded in killing that woman. So, my brethren, I just sat down quietly. I didn't talk. If I'd answered her that time, it would have been a problem. I was in a bus as well. Bus that contained maybe more than 50 passengers. So I preached. After preaching, I gave out invitation. So when I sat down, the woman next to me was like, so upon all these things that they have said, you, as young as you are, you're still going to that place. See, this thing was so difficult that it was difficult for some of us to walk on the street. We were pelted with sachet water, stones. Sand was poured on some of our brethren. Just knowing that you came from the ministry I'm talking about, you were in trouble in those days. Because we killed the woman. Now, but nobody was able to provide or to prove how we killed the woman. But the thing was that it was everywhere that we killed the woman. But eventually, it happened that this woman, because of the pressure on her and things she could not prove, she ran from Nigeria to Ghana and hid herself in Ghana. And then people started talking, spreading false rumors. And that became another problem. Now, do you know why I am telling you this story? I'm telling you this story, by the reason of what I do here on this channel. I've been misunderstood by some persons. Some persons think I am against the church. I'm against their pastor. There are good-hearted people who know that I'm not against the church. I'm not against pastors. I'm only against what the Bible is against. All right? So, people think that in as much as, and there are also the other group of people who are extremists who think that once anything that has to do with the pastor or church comes up, you must condemn the pastor, you must condemn the church, you must not even be lenient at all. In that same way also, there are some that think that as long as it has to do with pastor or church, hey, don't talk about them. They'll begin to put for you, touch not by anointed, and doing my prophet no harm. Because in talking about them, you will inherit curse. Your generation will be cursed. Right? So don't talk about them. These are two different kinds of persons. So when you bring out facts that should be cross-checked with the scriptures, the one who think that you must be on it immediately and condemn the person immediately, whether there is a proof or not, whether you are there or not, you just be on your heels. And the ones that think you must not talk about it, if you do, that's trouble. Now, you see, somebody called me and was telling me about the story he was told about a certain man of God too, who became born again in his ministry, not under his ministration, but in the church that he supervises. That cow was buried in his church, and the cow was buried alive in his church. Now, as I'm telling this now, somebody may ask me, how are you sure that is not true? And as much as we know that there are people who do that I'm so sure that this one is not true. The cow was buried in his church alive. And so when the cow decayed underground, now the number of maggots that was coming out of that church after that cow, carcass from the ground, so will be the level. He didn't even know the story. He was just telling me that they say he buried cow alive. And I helped him to complete the story, because in the early 90s, I was told that it was a ram that he buried. Now, and so that he was told that as much maggot that will come out of the ram, so shall the number of the membership be. Early 90s. And the question is, this ministry started in the 70s. So the effect of the ram and the maggot is still on even till today. That the man is old, his ministry is still waxing strong, and there is no way you can trace such thing to the man. I told my brother that it is not true. Now, you see, why I'm saying this is that we can err innocently, we can make mistake innocently, but it is not wise for me to stick my head into matters that I cannot prove. Listen, if anybody appears on the social media or in anywhere, and there is a proof, we can see that, oh, he said this, does this in the church, like those that would call for fire in the church, and we know that this fire came from chemicals. Those that will capture baby's face with an iPad. And this is with the connivance of members. And these are things we can prove. Or those that will raise dead body live on stage, and we know that these are lies. I will brutally and honestly talk about it and condemn it. I told you sometimes, some time ago, I think was it yesterday, that you see the kind of threat that I am receiving now is unprecedented. Somebody called me claiming to be a policeman, that he was coming from Abuja for an assignment in Lagos, but he wanted to meet with me because a petition was written against him. And I wanted to know who or what. He wanted to sound like police officer to bully me with arrest and all that he would want me to tell him where I was so that we could meet in any nearer police post. I got the call, switched off my phone. Now, and I told you the other time somebody was set a trap for me, and I know it by the leading of the Holy Spirit. I could have walked into the trap and I would have been kidnapped or even killed. Now, because people think that I am spoiling business for them. So why I'm saying this, my brothers and sisters, is that sometimes we need to apply wisdom. Let's not make it look like we are fighting against the church. We're not fighting against the church. We're fighting against the institution of lies established by men. And even though we are working, against these things, sometimes too, those men might be innocent of some of the allegations that have been leveled against them. Like, you guys know I'm not a fan of Gilbert Angel, but I've made a video here where I told some truth about what was said about him. The truth about what was said about him being a member of the Freemason. If he is, I don't know. But based on the evidence that the person provided, I debunked it is not true. When Jeremiah Omotofufeyi, everybody on this channel knows that, I don't think for a moment that Jeremiah is serving Jesus. But during the saga, there was the saga that went viral that time. I took a stand, not defending Jeremiah, but telling the truth as I saw it. I was bombarded, was attacked. In fact, a certain woman opened channel because of me, opened the YouTube channel because of me. I would make a video, she will use it, analyze it, just raining all kinds of insults on me. I would be on her channel, I would watch, I would smile and laugh. All right, now and I didn't do anything, I didn't say anything, and I can't even remember the name of that channel now because she seems to have gone out of business, because what she was talking about, the trend had died, so she has gone out of business. So what am I saying? This woman ran to Ghana to hide herself, but we were being accused of having killed her. Now, have you seen how things worked? How things work. If, for instance, that day that the woman accused me of being part of those that killed the woman, another person joined, or maybe I challenged her, another person joined to attack me, others, definitely in that bus of about 50 persons, I may only have 2 weak voices that would want to stand by me. Now, you know how dangerous it would be. If I was lynched, I would have been lynched and killed for something that did not happen. But what am I saying? Let us all be on the side of the truth. Jesus said to us, be as wise as serpents, but as harmless as dove. So you that will come to defend your pastor, please stop defending your pastor. You don't know your pastor. Does it seem like I'm contradicting myself? Not at all. You don't know your pastor. You can only defend things that you know. If anybody comes to tell you that your pastor was seen in a nightclub, you feel it is not possible for your pastor to be seen in a nightclub, but it is likely that your pastor, it is possible rather, but you think it is not likely. No, just think like that it is possible, but mostly not likely for him to be seen. So you are leaving a room for eventuality. He may be found in a nightclub for different reasons. You might be living a life you don't know. Of course, we have a Kenyan bishop who visits nightclub, and eventually in one of his visits, he received a gift that people get from nightclub. So we are supposed to be open-hearted, large-hearted, to accept the truth. See, we talk about the things that many people do, but anytime you bring out something about Christ Embassy, you see Christ Embassy members, some of them, not all of them, some of them are a disgrace. Some persons from the Redeemed Christian Church of God are so wise, but some are a disgrace. Some are a disgrace. But they are disgraceful to the church they are trying to defend and protect, and they are a disgrace to the body of Christ in entirety. How can you want, in the process of trying to defend your man of God or defend your church, and you use words that should not be found anywhere in the congregation of the saints? I'm not talking about the followers of Yvette, Angel, Ibushiri, and Jeremiah Omotofwe. No, I'm not talking about those ones. I'm talking about these people. But you know, when you talk about Aflukau, for instance, they will be there hailing you, talking. And some of these people are even adults. Now, my question is, what will you give as an answer when eventually you find out that your pastor is guilty as charged? And what will you also give as an answer when you find out that the one accusing that pastor was wrong? That, okay, there could be some grounds for some of the things that he said in whatever thing he said, but majority of them were tainted with lies. But you brought out your chest and you stood for him. What will you give as an answer? And you who will insult and threaten people, what will you tell God eventually that you did on earth? You didn't defend Jesus. You were so busy defending your man of God. Will you not be ashamed on that day? God bless you. I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much. From me to you. Shalom.